This is how modern neuroscience sees the sensitive periods. Here, the sensitive periods are less differentiated than Montessori showed us, with sensory pathways, language, and then higher cognitive function as separate graphs. These sensitive periods are caused by the formation of neural connections and the synapses formation in the brain. Scientists even call these sensitive periods, as Montessori did, although they are still not really able to explain why our brain focuses on these particular areas, except for the fact that they help us develop our human characteristics. When the child's sensitive periods are supported and nourished through a prepared environment and an empathetic adult, we can observe certain positive manifestations in the child's life. We will, for example, see deep concentration, where the whole child is involved and where he seems refreshed even after long periods of work. We can see tremendous goal-directed activity, always including the work of the hand and around a purposeful and meaningful activity. The child is often busy and not idle. We can also observe a lot of repetition, both of the same kind of activities and of variations of activities. This repetition leads to the perfect acquisition of a skill. We also can observe joy in the child. He seems to be basically happy, harmonious, and he expresses his love of life in various ways. He cares for his environment and his friends in a loving manner. On the other hand, when the environment does not facilitate for the child's natural development and the adult does not understand the forcefulness of the sensitive periods, we can also observe negative manifestations such as feelings of frustration, negative behavior, and a constant internal struggle and conflict. These can come about because we interfere with the child's concentrated work, sometimes even just by commenting on what the child is doing. Also, when we inhibit movement or exploration of the world because we are more concerned with our precious objects or with the safety of the child, we will experience the child's forceful protests. As a result, we often see meaningless activity and much restlessness. As adults, we might say that the children are naughty because they do not obey us when we want them to stop touching things. But they do obey very much. They obey their inner nature and the urge for exploration and the refinement of the senses. Unfortunately, we often perceive the negative manifestations more clearly than the positive ones. As long as there is no conflict and struggle, the concentration and joyful work of the child passes us by without notice, and nothing special is done to foster this further. But when a child protests against the inhibition of his inner needs, we say that he has a problem, and we focus all our attention on it. In the same way, we take our healthy body for granted and only become aware of the different parts when they are in a state of pain or sickness. So what are the adults' responsibilities towards their support of the sensitive periods? In order to work hand in hand with the guiding forces of the sensitive periods, we need to prepare the environment. Here the child will find the richness of language, both spoken and written. He will find order in the environment and in every activity. He finds a living social environment and the means to refine his senses. He is also given an environment where movement is in an intricate part of everyday life. And most importantly, he is also given the time and the freedom to act on his own in this environment. We have to train ourselves to recognize when the different sensitive periods occur in every child. Because although we put an age on each one of these, they manifest differently in each child. This means that we need to pay attention to the signal that the child gives us so we can react appropriately to it. A child might, for example, be very unrestful under a presentation, which does not necessarily mean that there is something wrong with the presentation or with the child's concentration, but this child might show you a great need for movement. We must avoid making assumptions about the child and instead train ourselves to really observe him and to understand the individual child's reactions. It is of great importance also that we prepare ourselves internally for the work with children. We need to understand the theory and know the different presentations by heart so that we can focus our attention on the child's reactions instead of on our own work. Therefore, we must practice a lot with every exercise so that our hands know what they are doing. Through repetition, our movements also become clear and beautiful, thus easy for the child to understand. Our internal preparation should also extend to a conscious way of living where we are aware of our own strengths and weaknesses so that they do not interfere with our work with the children. We must realize that we cannot influence the child directly. It is only through indirect means, such as the environment and our attitude towards the child, that we can offer assistance. Our goal should be to aid the sensitive periods and to avoid hindering them. It is of great importance to remember that the sensitive periods only appear once in every child's life. As Montessori said, the sensitive periods are the guides which help the child in his task of construction. If we take them into consideration and utilize them for the education of the children, we will find that our task becomes much easier and our approach assistential.